party would have taken place last Friday. Madam Speaker, after listening to the presentation by the member for Lupino Bonnet, there was one thing that the Minister of Public Utilities, member for Lupino Bonnet, said that I agree with. And that is, the problem is not money, the problem is management. The Minister, the member for Lupino Bonnet, lamented that in his own constituency for 40 years, there are areas that has not had water for 24/7 supply. I want to ask the honourable member, out of that 40 years, how many years did the PNM sit in the government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago? Madam Speaker, it is a shame, it is a crying shame for the member for Lupino Bonnet to come and say after 40 years, when his very own party, the People's National Movement, for 3/4 of that period was a government of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Madam Speaker, in those very constituencies the member for Lupino Bonnet speaks and pontificates from, has not had any kind of development, and they continue to live in squalor, in sewage, and that is a representation of constituencies that the member for Lupino Bonnet boasts about. 40 years, they're now getting water 24/7, and the member thinks that is a grand achievement, when his very own party has been representing those areas for all of those 40 years. Madam Speaker, the Honourable Minister said that they were developing a national development strategy in the area of public utilities. And the Minister indicated, Madam Speaker, that they were doing all of these grand things through this national development strategy. But Madam Speaker, in the area of public utilities, the only grand strategy we are seeing is their strategy to run the Ministry of Public Utilities and the state enterprises under the Ministry of Public Utilities into the ground. All we are seeing is the selling off of assets in the area of public utilities, TSCT, WASA, TNTEC. All we are seeing in public utilities in TSCT, WASA, and TNTEC is the closing down of companies. We are seeing the sending home of employees and the writing off of debts and the starving of these companies of staffing and funding. Madam Speaker, when you look at the Standing Finance Committee report and the breakdown under various ministries, state enterprises, state companies, etc., out of the $3 billion that we are being asked to vary today, Madam Speaker, to supplement, $192 million. $192 million, Madam Speaker, of this $3 billion.
Forged from the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer, with boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare, side by side we stand, highlands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land, we pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Almighty God, most beneficial and merciful, Creator of the universe and embodiment of divine wisdom and light, we come before you with thanksgiving and praise. May your will be done in our nation as it is in the heavens. Please bless our political leader, party officials, activists, and all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Give us the grace to always see good, be good, and do good, and the courage to serve the people. Protect us as we stand against injustice and iniquity, and inspire our endeavors to find the right solutions to the problems that are affecting our fellow citizens. Grant that we may always work together with humility and respect for the greater happiness of all and the honor and glory of our country. From across the nation, we are the United National Congress, and this is our virtual report.
Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the United National Congress Virtual Report. A pleasant good evening to our political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, Senior Counsel, and Opposition Leader of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. A good evening to our National Executive members, members of Parliament, senators, councillors, aldermen, our dynamic team here tonight, and most importantly, our viewing audience, those of you here tonight and those of you joining us virtually through our various social media platforms. I am Councillor Wendy Francis for the Electoral District of Felicity Endeavour. I am also the Treasurer of the United National Congress Women's Arm, and tonight I am chairing, and my co-host joining me here tonight is Mr. Kenwin Phillip from all the way from the Sandy Grande Regional Corporation, Vice Chairman, and also the Councillor for Manzalina Fishing Pond, Mr. Kenwin Phillip. We are here to take you through tonight's program, and our first speaker here tonight is a young man. He first contested election for over 18 years ago, and he has been faithfully serving the Burgesses since then. He's a humble and dedicated servant to the people. He is the councillor for Paro, San Pedro, Tabaquite, and he's also the chairman of the Couva, Tabaquite, Talparo Regional Corporation. Please welcome to our virtual platform here tonight, Chairman Henry Awang.
Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come.
Welcome to the revolution.
People crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom.
Leader of the opposition, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bisesa, members of Parliament, councillor, colleagues all, my brothers and sisters, pleasant good evening. I must start by expressing my sincere thanks and gratitude for the opportunity to be part of this virtual platform tonight, and it's indeed a pleasure and an honor to lead off the battle in such a powerful lineup. I'm always pleased to speak on local government matters, being a practitioner for almost 19 years. and chairman of one of the largest regional corporations in this country for 8 years. But I must tell you that from 2015 to now, it has been my worst experience as a local government practitioner from 2015 to now. Our best time with regards to being resourced was under the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar government, because she understood the importance of local government, which deals with the everyday needs of the people. When you get up in the morning, you want to know that your garbage is collected, your sidewalks clean, the drains and waterways clean, to minimize the risk of flooding, just to name a few. But with the lack of resources and funding from this present government, we are unable to effectively do this for and on behalf of the people. Just imagine a corporation as large as the one I just mentioned, with a population of over 178,000 people living in this region, that spans a geographical space of 719.6 square kilometers. You gave me 1.4 million to repair roads and bridges in this fiscal year. And to make matters worse, up to this point in time, you have not yet released one black cent to do the work for the people. Not 1 cent of that 1.4 million. If you divide 1.4 million by 14 councillors asking for a piece of that, that is $100,000 per councillor district to carry out work in their district for maintenance of roads and bridges. And you may know rural communities like ours, rural corporations like ours, have a lot of wooden bridges still. To repair one bridge is over $100,000. Over $100,000. So you can see the lack of funding to the corporation, starving the corporation for funding. In our development program for this fiscal year, $4.5 million for the entire corporation. That is to do major works, major development work, PSIP jobs, fix bridges, pave roads, and so on, with $4.5 million to be divided into 14. Check the maths. You do the maths. The same thing for drainage. My corporation, does have lots of flooded issues. And you give us $4 million to address the drainage issue in this region. Just $4 million. Divided by 14 again, you'll do the maths again. So, brothers and sisters, it's the worst time ever as a councillor, as a chairman of a corporation, I have witnessed under this PNN government. But I want to deal with a special matter, and that matter, at this time, I want to report to you, the general public, on a matter that is presently in the public domain. I speak about the Indian Trail Recreation Grounds. In the month of January, we had reports coming to us at the corporation that there are activities taking place on the Indian Trail Recreation Grounds. Those activities were excavation of soil and trucks carting away what is known as backfill dirt. Officers of the corporation were asked to investigate this matter. They found trucks, they found an excavator with no registration mark or number or anything on it. The trucks had no signage, no indication of who the trucks belonged to. There was no logos, no anything like that on the trucks. They reported that they told the people who was there to cease operations until we clarified what was happening there. The person stopped for a couple of days, then, to our surprise, excavation and removal of the backfill resumed. On investigation, we found out that the equipment on site belonged to Pickle Services Limited. So we had to take photos of the number plate, go to the the transport board, request information, and it showed that the trucks that were on site belonged to Pickle Service Limited, which is owned by MP Foster Cummins' family. A discontinuance notice was served in February of 2022 on the company to immediately stop all operations. I have noticed in the newspaper someone saying that they are the secretary of the Indian Trail Village Council. And we all know that these village councils, public knowledge, are PNM party groups. Most of them, PNM party groups. The persons indicated that the corporation, with no good reason, stopped the work that Pickle Service Limited was doing for the community, which they are saying to upgrade the recreation grounds. Madam, please be informed that there is no formal agreement with Pickle Service Limited and the CTTRC to carry out any work on the Indian Trail Recreation Ground. Mr. Foster Cummins and the corporation have signed no memorandum of understanding with regards to Indian Trail recreation grounds. None whatsoever. He can tell you all in Indian Trail, the party group number 1, that he's going to build pavilion, car park, and walking track, etc. All of which I, as chairman of the City TRC and my fellow members of council, would love to have for our Burgesses. But unless he signs off on that MOU with the regional corporation, nothing would be binding. Nothing would be binding. In the absence of such, he can just excavate, remove backfill to other projects that his company is doing, and leave us with the grounds as it is. And let me tell you, just higher up the road from that recreation ground, there was a major landslide. That same gentleman got the contract to repair that landslide. All the backfill that was done on that landslide, all the fill came from that said recreation grounds a couple of years ago. Said recreation grounds. As I said to the media, we are not against corporate sponsors coming on board to assist the corporation and by extension various communities. As a matter of fact, we encourage this through our sponsorship policy, but it must be done through following all process and procedures. And I want to tell you, there's a recreation grounds in the region, Tudge Road Recreation Grounds. Just before the general elections of 2020, they came to sports company and so on, sports company of Trinidad and Tobago, and they fenced the grounds around, saying that they're going to put in pavilions, they're going to put in walking track, etc., etc., etc. That's the Tudge Road Recreation Grounds. That grounds fall in the constituency of La Hoqueta Talparo, which Foster Cummins is the MP for. So he's into fixing grounds, but he would not. Councillor John Lizama, for almost 2 years, been clamoring to get that grounds back in operation for the people of Tudge Road, and nothing has been done. But Foster Cummins saying, telling the people of Indian Trail he's going to put pavilion and so on for them in Indian Trail. Fix your grounds in your constituency too. Fix it. Or is it that there doesn't have any backfill there to cart away? That's my question, really. So, brothers and sisters, just to wind up quickly, I understand that time is of the essence, and I was given a strict warning to stick to the time. I just want to mention one thing very quickly. As we all know, all the roads in Trinidad under Johansson are gone through. All the roads gone through. There's a particular road I just want to mention, is the Grand Couva Main Road. The cocoa farmers in that area formed themselves into a cooperative, the Monstrat Cocoa Cooperative, Cocoa Farmers Cooperative. They went on the media and highlighted the condition of the road because they had a container of dried cocoa to get to the port to be exported. So they went on the media and so on and they highlighted it. You know what's the response to Rohan Sananan? That road doesn't fall under Ministry of Works. Mr. Rohan Sananan, the Grand Couva Main Road, is a Ministry of Works road. But even though it was not, that's the best response you can give the cocoa farmers who want to get a container of cocoa to the port to be exported. You know? So he called, the gentleman from the cocoa farmers called me, he said, Chairman, help me out now. I took her back from the corporation, we salvaged some of the same material in the landslide, halfway fixed up the road, and so they could get the container of cocoa to the port to be exported on time. This PNN government speak about agriculture and so on, but they have no care about agriculture and farmers in this country, none whatsoever. And if I had more time, I'll go into a little more about that. So the PNM is only about mama guy, local government reform, only sweet talk, starving corporations. They're talking about farmers and getting involved with farmers and so on. No agriculture access roads. So in conclusion, my brothers and sisters, very shortly, you'll be called upon to make a very important decision that would affect your lives and those of your loved ones. One way or the next. That depends on how you vote. The people are fed up and saying enough is enough. They are saying that Keith Rowley and the PNM must go. As for me and my house, we cannot wait to vote out this PNM government. And I know you cannot wait to do so, or to do the same. So I thank you very much. God bless.
It's about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution.
Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on.
Thank you, Chairman Awong, for that powerful contribution. And I just want to ask you to put your hands together again for that contribution, my Chairman Awong. And I want to agree with Chairman Awong when he said the regional cooperation are being stifled. And I can speak about Sani Grande because we are in the six months in this fiscal year, and we only receiving funding from salary and salary-related items and for scavenging contract. So it's my view that the UNC cooperation throughout the country is being stifled by this wicked PNM government. Our next speaker is an internationally publisher, author, and a former university lecturer. A well-known political analyst, he has been proudly serving as a public relations officer of the UNC for over a year now. Please put your hands together for Dr. Kurt Megu. Come on! As we move in this people's revolution, my brothers and sisters, let's all walk together as one. This revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping this.
Good night, brothers and sisters. It is great to be here with you tonight. And special greetings to our political leader, the Honorable Kamala Prasad Bissessa, the next Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. And a far, far better Prime Minister than our current Prime Minister can ever dream of being. Today, I want to speak to you about our current deceitful and lying Prime Minister, Keith Rowley. He lies to the country all the time, and he needs to have his lies thrown back at him. We must not accept them, no matter how much he shouts and bullies and gets on like a wajang. We are not accepting your lies. Enough is enough. Let's go back to the press conference on Thursday, the 12th of May, 2022. In that address, Keith Rowley tried to deflect hard from the special branch report, which had allegedly noted that Minister Foster Cummings had relationships with a reputed drug dealer, improperly used his influence to gain contracts, and whose companies have been illegally occupying state lands. He doesn't want people to talk about that. So disgusting Rowley deflected by sexually harassing our leader at a publicly funded media briefing, no less. Can you imagine that? He made the most distasteful public remarks about our leader's intimate nightwear. He tried to humiliate and intimidate her with irrelevant sexual references. This is not the first time this has happened, and it's not the first time that the multitude of women's groups in society have remained eerily silent. Did you hear from any of them? Mrs. Prasad Bissessa has shattered so many glass ceilings for all the women of Trinidad and Tobago. First woman Attorney General, first woman leader of a parliamentary party, first woman Prime Minister, first woman to chair the Commonwealth as a sitting head of government. She should be honored by these women's group as the #1 icon for women's advancement in this country, because she is. A woman like our leader, who has achieved so many historical breakthroughs by herself, certainly has the strength to rise above this continuous, sexist, verbal abuse by our vulgar Prime Minister. She has a strength that others could only dream of. Still, it is disgraceful that our women's groups, who are normally very vocal, keep silent. By staying silent, they enable Keith Rowley to continue with his sexist attacks on our leader, but also on every other woman in this society. Shame on them. But that wasn't the only way Keith Rowley attempted to distract. Another attempt was his claim that the UNC, quote, make as many allegations as they want against the Prime Minister and any number of ministers, and create this callaloo of corruption to suggest that all are we thief. That's Rowley saying that we in the UNC are exposing Foster because we want to say all are we thief, and that the PNM is somehow pure and upstanding. That is a joke. The PNM are a disgrace to Trinidad and Tobago. Keith Rowley should well remember that all are we thief is a PNM slogan which they created and own. Lock, stock, and barrel. Let me remind you, it was Desmond Carty, the MP for Laventille and Minister of Housing and Resettlement, who came up with that phrase, all are we thief. It was during the 1986 election campaign. At that time, he responded to a heckler at a public meeting in his constituency. He replied, "Who ain't thief in Trinidad? All are we thief." That was the PNM response when they were finally being held to account for 3 decades of corruption from 1956 to 1986. But all are we and thief is PNM. They can't put that off on others. We must never forget the PNM's long history of corruption. From independence and even in colonial times, the PNM have been involved in corruption after corruption. There was the gas station racket, the procurement of BWE aircraft, Lockjack in Port of Spain, Point Lisa's contracts, Trinidad Tesoro, the Caroni racetrack, the ECO foreign exchange scheme, the Hall of Justice, Mount Hope complex, the Twin Towers financial complex, the DC-9 scandal, Severn Trent, Calder Hart and the Port of Spain waterfront, the Prophetess Pina, and the famous case of O'Halloran. I could go on and on and on. Things reached to such an extreme extent, so bad under the PNM dictatorship, that the Wall Street Journal of the 12th of March 1987 even published U.S. court testimony which implicated former Prime Minister Chambers, George Chambers, in a backroom deal with the Tesoro Oil Company involving Chambers with a blonde prostitute. They said he preferred blondes. Can you imagine that? What a disgrace to our country the PNM is. A total disgrace. Bob Lindquist was the lead investigator on corruption during those years. He had this to say about John O'Halloran, from whom millions of dollars were successfully retrieved by the courts of Canada, where O'Halloran had fled. O'Halloran's clout in Trinidad lay in the way he seemed to hold over a man named Eric Williams. Williams appointed his man to a series of powerful patronage positions. From his insider vantage point, Johnny O took his slice, his 10%, his skim off the top, in oil, construction, and horse racing. Almost everybody in Trinidad knew it, but nobody could do anything about it. The Honorable Selwyn Richardson, the Attorney General in the Williams government, launched an investigation in the early 1980s into O'Halloran's looting of various tills. The investigation was genuine, but so were the concealments and the obfuscations. These roadblocks were set in place by the higher-ups within Richardson's own party, by people who shared O'Halloran's corrupt practices. After the PNM were removed from power by the NAR, it was the first time that a foreign country had successfully sued a U.S. company for bribery and made a recovery. It was a great case, a great experience, but with a very bad ending, the loss of a friend. On June 20th, 1995, Selwyn was murdered in his driveway at his home in Trinidad. Unfortunately, the PNM corruption continues right up until today, and not only with Foster Cummings. We currently have in place a criminal PNM narco cabinet, protecting each other's secrets like the Cosa Nostra, the mafioso. This is the most corrupt and criminal administration in the history of Trinidad and Tobago. Ministers have recused themselves 210 times from cabinet meetings because they or their family members have conflicts of interest in the awards of government contracts. That means they personally benefit. This has never occurred before in the country's history. And there's a pattern in Keith Rowley's cabinet. The previously fired National Security Minister, Stuart Young, while heading that ministry, his former stepdaughter, Christiana Sankar, was charged with possession of marijuana and cocaine for the purpose of trafficking, possession of firearms and ammunition. Just 8 months before her arrest, the family paid a $167,000 ransom to release her from the kidnapping. And you can't disown her, Stuart. After the ransom was paid for her release, you stated, "I would like to thank the TTPS and all arms of the law enforcement for their professionalism and efforts. I also thank the citizens of TNT and nationals who offered their prayers and support during this very difficult time. I am happy that Christiana is safe." That's Stuart Young talking. Just 8 months after, she was arrested on drugs and guns charges while he was Minister of National Security. You have the fired attorney, Faris Al-Rawi, being under investigation for illegal possession and use of firearms, his issues with the Integrity Commission on the sale of the Porsche, the police with the other ministers' sons with the COVID regulations. You have Camille Robinson-Regis under police probe for the $143,800 cash withdrawal from Republic Bank and the unaccounted for deposits. That's a police probe. You have the serving minister and deputy political of the PNM, Marlene MacDonald, who is now charged with conspiracy to defraud the state, misbehaving in public office, and money laundering. She is in the process of being tried right now. And of course, they all follow their leader. Keith Rowley not only has questions to answer to the Integrity Commission about his and his daughter's Inez Gate townhouses and his goat farming business, but Rowley has undermined the police itself by causing the illegal withdrawal of the merit list, shutting down, collapsing the Police Service Commission, bringing the president into his misbehavior, all to illegally interfere. So Keith Rowley needs to spare the country from this ridiculous idea that the PNM represents any sort of morality in public affairs. Their entire history has been the opposite. Rowley cannot put all our teeth onto the UNC. That applies purely to the PNM. They created, patented, and own that phrase. It's time to throw back the lies to Rowley, forget their old talk, and remove this narco cabinet, criminal cabinet from office. Let us all say, enough is enough. Thank you.
Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice.
Thank you. Yes, folks, enough is enough. With a Prime Minister like Dr. Keith Rowley leading our country, it is a disgrace. Dr. Keith Rowley frequently make derogatory, misogynistic statements about our opposition leader, our political leader, and the women of Trinidad and Tobago. I want to reference a few days ago, criminologists at the University of the West Indies would have highlighted that Trinidad and Tobago is heading for the highest murder rate in history. And one of the factors leading to this is not only the economic hardships coming out of the global pandemic, but also they made reference to a parental crisis. And just like our youths look at our parents for guidance, so too they look at people in position, in authority, such as our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley. And when our Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, and his administration continuously to degrade, insult, and show no consideration or respect for our nation's women, so too are our youths looking on, learning and emulating the behaviors, the aggressive behaviors and the derogatory statements made from our Prime Minister, which is such a disgrace to our country. It is not only a disgrace, but it's very unprofessional and most importantly, unacceptable. So folks, please let your voices be heard. Join the call. Enough is enough. Rowley must go. Fitzgerald Hines must go. Webster Roy must go. Nothing is being done to protect our not only our women, but the people of Trinidad and Tobago. Friends, it is my pleasure and my privilege to introduce the next speaker on tonight's platform. She's a very young, strong, vibrant, and outspoken woman. She is an accomplished attorney at law, and we look forward to her standing contributions in the Senate, the upper house of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. Please welcome, put your hands together for Senator Jayanti Lakshmi-Dayal.
Crying out for justice. Some of them crying out for freedom. Want freedom. Everybody crying out for democracy.
Good night, my UNC family. I want to start off tonight by reminding everyone that May is the anniversary month of the People's Partnership taking government. It was the start of 5 transformative years when we saw prosperity like never before in this country. What the UNC delivered during those 5 years, we all know, and we don't need to talk about it. I can't even begin to list it all tonight. It will take us all night to talk about the accomplishments of the Kamla Prasad-Bissessar government. But I want to remind you that it was on the strength of what eventually became the UNC that we took government, the NAR took government in '86. It was with the tireless work of the UNC that we were able to take government in 1995. It was again the work and the accomplishments of that government where we won the elections in 2000. And I want to say that it was the sacrifice and the hard work of the UNC that led us to victory in 2010. I say all of this just to make the point that this is the only party that can take back this government, that take back this country from the PNM. This is the only great party capable of removing the PNM from office. We have done the work that no other party can do, and we will do it again. I want to tell you the road is long, but the race is not for the swiftest, but for those who can endure to the end. And I want to remind you that tough and dark days may be here, and we may not yet see the light at the end of that tunnel, but we walk that tunnel together. And the UNC is the representation of the hope of the people. We are the hope that this country needs. And we must make difficult decisions. We must stand in the interest of the people of this country, even though it might be very hard to do so at times, and people might sue you. But it's been an interesting couple weeks since I spoke last. There are 2 times that I spoke very recently, and let me remind you of what I spoke about. Of course, I think everyone remembers what I spoke about at TNT Speaks. Very telling revelation about the report into Minister Foster Cummings. And since then, we've heard a lot being said, but it's a lot of nothing. Because up to now, all the Prime Minister, who I posed questions to that night, all he can say is that he don't get involved in police business. I want to ask him, since when? Since when he is not involved in police business? He does not see it fit to do anything about that report that he has had since 2019. That is what he is saying. And if you read what is being reported in the newspapers, the minister is saying that he knew nothing about this report and about being investigated. So is it that being faced with this report of police intelligence in 2019 that the Prime Minister did not even ask the then senator about what was contained in that report? Suddenly, what is said by the special branch doesn't make sense. And if you listen to the Prime Minister, you would not know that the special branch, and let me read from the TTPS website about what the special branch is and how important they are. Who we are, special branch. The special branch is responsible for intelligence gathering in matters of national security and organized criminal activities, so as to better serve the investigative and operational arms of the TTPS. And they are also responsible for providing protection to high-level state officials and foreign dignitaries. All our men in suits walking around Rowley's special branch, and all of a sudden, this Prime Minister, in an attempt to deflect, a whole week later, in an attempt to come to the defense of Minister Cummings, basically disregards, diminishes the work of the special branch. He talks about hearsay. He said, well, that could be anything. Somebody could come and just tell you, well, boy, I hear so. That is the confidence you have in the men and women of the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, especially the special branch. That is ridiculous, and nobody is buying that. Nobody. You making the special branch out to be like the corner house tanty. They're just repeating things that they hear somewhere, and rumors, and hearsay. I think you really believe that the people of this country are stupid. That is what it is, Rowley. You believe that everybody is stupid, and that once you go off on your little throw your tantrum about people nighty and petticoat and duster coat and whatever else it is that you seem to be so obsessed with, that nobody will see behind that smoke screen that you are trying to create. And the distraction. But I want to tell you tonight, no amount of distraction and deflection and talking about evidence versus intelligence and all of that. We know what is intelligence and what is evidence, Rowley. The point about it is that when you have intelligence coming from the intelligence gathering arm of the TTPS, you are supposed to have an investigation. And tonight, I repeat the call where I want to know tonight, what is the progress of the investigation into the allegations contained into that report? And no amount of lawsuit will stop me from asking those questions. They think that they can just talk in circles. They think that even though the report has been, ownership of the report has been taken by the TTPS, that they don't need to answer these questions. But you know, when someone came to him with some information or intelligence about Gary Griffith, what did he do? He instructed that merit list come back. He went and he had conversations, that he's the head of National Security Council, and he could talk to the president, and he could talk to the Service Commission, and he could do whatever he has to do to protect the people of this country. You did not feel that way in 2019? And I want to read something that I came across that I thought was so interesting. And maybe I should have opened like this when I spoke about the report, the special branch report. It says, sometime after I received a package, and when I received the package, it occurred to me that there were people in this country, somewhere in the country, who must have heard the government saying how important it is in this interest of furthering transparency and accountability and ferreting out wrongdoing, that the government promised that we will have legislation sometime in the future to protect whistleblowers. And Mr. Speaker, I took that to mean that the package that I received came from a whistleblower, and the content of the package was a series of emails which someone in a position to package thought that this country should have access to, based on what was before us, and based on what was being said to us, and what it meant for the people of Trinidad and Tobago. That is you, like a coward, hiding in the parliament under parliamentary privilege to talk about fake emails. So I don't have to be a coward and hide in the parliament and hide under parliamentary privilege. I could have come out and talk about my authentic document, a document that is now confirmed to be authentic. But ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, when ownership of the document was claimed by the TTPS, what did they say? What did they do? Did they tell you that, you know, this type of intelligence, they went to the HDC to ask questions and to take statements? Did they go and ask about proper tendering procedures being employed by the HDC for contracts that were allegedly obtained by influence? Did they go to residents in the particular area that was spoken about in that report and take statements from them about those activities that are reported there? Did the police go to the HDC to ask them about the lands, who they were purchased from, when they were purchased? Was the consent obtained? And tonight, I want to say that I'm very concerned to know that the HDC, whose mandate it is to provide lands for housing and for low to middle income housing, would allow one person or persons connected in one family to own 3 parcels of land in one area. Because today in the parliament, the Prime Minister said in response to a question from MP Indar Singh, that those lands are HDC lands. All the parcels he's talking about, they were either purchased by the minister or repurchased, either not directly from the HDC, but repurchased by people who purchased them from the HDC. There is a procedure that you have to go through if you are purchasing those lands to avoid exactly that people do not utilize HDC lands for commercial activity and so on. But I want to show you something tonight. I want to show you a photograph of a building. This building is a building located on the corner of the Southern Main Road. buildings looking like this? That is the first thing I want you to answer here tonight. I cannot believe that you would simply disregard all of the information in a report simply because you do not want to raise red flags about someone that you intended to put forward to the population of this country to be elected. And that is what is worrying about all of this. The Prime Minister is the one who wants to go on every opportunity and talk about police looking for this one and this one have questions to answer and all of that. But you didn't think when you saw that report that there were questions to answer? Minister Fitzgerald Hines, he is absolutely unconcerned about the content. The concern is how the report gets to the opposition. You see, when they go in the parliament, and I say all of this not to defend myself, because I don't need to be defended, but when they go in the parliament and they're talking about whistleblower protection, we want whistleblower protection legislation because we want people to report wrongdoing and so on. They want a whistleblower until somebody blow the whistle on them. Then they don't want no whistleblowing anymore. They want to hunt down the whistleblower. So what Fitzgerald Hines said is that he said he had contacted the special branch to determine whether the report was authentic. He said if it was confirmed to be authentic, his problem was with how it ended up in the hands of the opposition. So his problem is not the intelligence collected by the special branch, that there may be links to organized to gang activity by a senator and his companies. His problem is not that there may be any issue of influence by a member of the government at that time, a senator, to get contracts. His problem is not with people illegally occupying lands according to the special branch. I didn't write the report, Let me tell you that. And nothing in that report you could put on me. I didn't write it. I only read it. And I ask questions. So he is not concerned about anything like that. And this is the man responsible for national security in this country. Do you see why we are in the state we are in today? Do you see why you have crime out of control in this country? Because the person who is responsible, although he said he's not responsible, but he's responsible for the safety and security of citizens of this country, is totally unconcerned when the TTPS collect intelligence like that, and he don't want to know what happened to it. He wants to know how Giants get it. That is his concern. But since the Prime Minister and Minister Hines and others are talking about they don't have evidence and that is not evidence and whatnot and so on, tonight I want to help them a little bit and I want to bring some evidence. I want to bring some evidence of things that are still, Foster gets jealous when I say things land up in my mailbox, so he sent a letter for me too, because he wanted to get in on the action of sending things in my mailbox. But it has come to my attention that in 2020, just before the general election, that Minister Foster Cummings sent someone on his behalf to make a deposit into Venture Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited of $1.8078626 million. Now, this, let me show you the source of funds declaration. Could you all pull up that? Being pressured to give this contract to Rivulet. But Rivulet was doing some work, apparently, for MTS back in 2019, 2020, thereabouts. And this check dated the 22nd of July, 2020. The next image shows the check. And that check went straight in on the next day, the 23rd, into Venture Credit Union. Now, you see, the check there is not made out to Rivulet Investment. It is made out directly to Venture Credit Union. And in the source of funds declaration, the exact amount on that check was deposited into the account because it asks member information. It doesn't say Rivulet. It does not say PICAL, although the person depositing it gives the employer and so on as PICAL. It goes into the bank account of Minister Foster Cummings. I don't know, Faris Al-Rawi is beat his chest all over the country about and you cannot do You cannot have beneficial ownership. They must look into beneficial ownership, and you cannot do commingling of funds and all kinds of things, right? You have to get due diligence, and anybody who is a politically exposed person must do due diligence. I want to ask tonight, what was the due diligence? Well, let me show you the due diligence. The due diligence on that transaction consists of two documents. Two documents from MTS provided to Rivulet Investment. One dated the 16th of December 2019 and one dated the 30th of January 2020. And in the total, both of these jobs, because this is the information provided to support the deposit of the check. We don't know why it went into the personal account, so that's question number one. But apart from that, it doesn't add up. The total of these two letters of award add up to $1,134,199.69, with a shortfall of some $673,000, give or take. Why did Venture Credit Union not ask questions about this? And tonight, I have several other questions which I think need answering. Now, if you don't remember, Rivulet Investment Group was the group that I spoke about, that Minister Cummings, this is the most recent annual return I have in my hand here of Rivulet Investment, filed in the company's registry. Juliet Modest of 491 Anissa Street, Point Lisa, Vancouver, who is the wife of Minister Cummings, is a director of this company, and someone by the name of Abiola Cummings. Juliet Modest is also the secretary of this company. That company was previously located at Suite 1 Metro Building, Noel Street in Vancouver. They changed their address in 2020, but the letters from MTS are addressed at Suite 1 Metro Building, Noel Street in Vancouver. By the way, just as an aside, I want to tell you that Minister Cummings said he doesn't know anything about a company named Clydon, and he's not at all connected to that company. But Clydon also, prior to changing their address, the address was Unit Number 2, Metro Building, Noel Street in Vancouver. And it was changed sometime in 2021. So you see, it is a tangled web that we weave, and we must decipher all what is happening here and what is going on. Brothers and sisters, I have several questions to ask about this. This source of funds declaration points to something very particular. At the time, Foster Cummings was not just a senator, he was running for election. He was a candidate at that time. This was less than a month before the 2020 general election, when $1.8 million obtained through contracts with state companies by Rivulet Investments Limited was deposited into his personal bank account at Venture Credit Union. I want to know if the financial institution conducted what is called enhanced due diligence, given the fact that he is a politician, running for political office, running in a campaign at that point in time. Was it reported? Now, of course, they probably cannot tip off and say what was reported and so on. But we want to know as well, did Minister Cummings, if it is that he obtained this money from Rivulet Investments Limited, the company where his wife and his some other person with the last name of Cummings are the directors and the shareholders in this company, did he declare this income to the Board of Inland Revenue? Did he pay any type of tax on this? If not, we have serious questions about tax evasion. The letter of award, that is only a letter of award, but where is the contract? Where is the actual contract from MTS? You could not provide it when you went in with your source of funds document? Because mere months after you obtained this 1.8, this contract from MTS through Rivulet Investments, you took that check and you were paid by MTS on the eve of the general election, and you took it straight into Venture Credit Union, where it was deposited into your personal name. There are rules. Brothers and sisters, if anybody here holds any sort of office, whether you are on a constituency executive, senator, MP, anybody connected to any political party, and you go to the bank right now, there's so much paper you have to fill out for everything. They will ask you. I had some transactions with the bank recently, and the only thing they didn't ask me for is which ship my great-grandparents came on. Because that is how far back they want to know. And not just me, every member of my family. So, being presented with this documentary evidence, I want to ask the financial institution tonight whether or not they did any due diligence on this company, whether or not they were concerned that this amount of money was going into the personal bank account of someone on the eve of a general election who was a candidate in a general election, who had been sitting as a senator prior in the government, getting that kind of money in a check from a government state enterprise through a company, and if they did a search on that company and they did not realize that it was a company connected to his family, if they did not think that that was suspicious and what they did with it. I want to tell you tonight, there is much, much more that I can say, because listen, all of these questions with the HDC that they need to answer about the transactions taking place and what is happening with the HDC and all of the lands that Minister Cummings is building on. Even the Prime Minister said today it is a matter for the HDC. It is my information that the Commissioner of State Lands did a site visit to Couva and they wrote to the HDC. But you see, this goes way back. And I want you to play a video here tonight because I found a report from 2017. Because when Prime Minister Rowley says a special branch report doesn't mean anything, it doesn't mean any evidence, he had to take it in the context of this report from 2017. Play the report and let's listen to what they were saying.
But persons residing in Couva contacted this TV6 reporter, claiming that their land as well as HDC land was being grabbed by persons affiliated with the then senator. In one instance, an elderly man reported that he was being bullied to leave Carney land he had been legally occupying for 34 years.
A senator come and a next man to talk to me a little bit. They leave and they walk around the back of the galvanized and they go on. The next morning, 3 or 4 workmen come in and they started to cut down trees.
Mr. Connell said 2 young men also visited him and made him sign a piece of paper which he was told was for compensation.
Right, so I sign a document. I don't know what is the document to me, like I sign a blank piece of paper because I didn't see no writing on the paper. You understand? And then I hear in this thing that they say this document come from South HDC. And I signed to them to grade on all these things I have here.
HDC residents planting on vacant HDC land also had their crops bulldozed. Signs were erected with the HDC logo which read, "Property of the HDC. No trespassing, no planting, no vending. Violators will be prosecuted."
They say the senator is the man who get the contract from NHA and give out the contract to the rest of contractors and them. We up there we saying, well, the senator come and speak to we, even self, he never show his face. So after me, this look like bubble.
When TV6 asked the then Housing Minister Randall Mitchell about the claims, we were told that an investigation had been launched. He says the HDC was not responsible for the clearing of any lands or the erection of any signs.
They've asked the HDC to conduct an investigation to see what they can uncover. In any event, the clearing of the land and the erection of that sign is in fact a trespass against the HDC.
When TV6 contacted the then senator, he denied all accusations, saying that he did not know Mr. Connell, never visited his house, and did not give any instruction for his property to be bulldozed. 5 years later, the special branch report has now been leaked. The opposition senator is asking the Prime Minister to respond to the allegations.
You see, somebody always gets it wrong. Mr. Connell gets it wrong, Special Branch gets it wrong, but I want to ask tonight Randall Mitchell and Penelope Beckles. You are both ministers in charge of HDC. Randall Mitchell, I know your voice well and I heard it there. Unfortunately, I have to listen to you calling people dotish in the Senate all the time when they want to send their children away for university and so on. But listen to me. We will not rest until we uncover what has happened. You must also come clean and tell us. And the police should come and talk to you because you said that the HDC was going to investigate. Penelope Beckles, I wonder if now that's why you had to go with Minister Cummings up in Wallerfield to talk about land tenure and whatnot, because you have also presided over what has been happening over in the HDC. And so both of you have questions to answer. Rowley, you like to talk about who have questions to answer? You have a whole heap of people coming out of this issue that have questions to answer. The FIU have questions to answer about these things. The financial institutions have questions to answer. Randall Mitchell must answer. Noel Garcia must answer. Brent Lyons, you were the managing director of the HGC at the time. Randall Mitchell is on the video there saying that there was a trespass against the HGC. And what happened? And where did the investigation go? Did you bury it? Were you instructed to bury it? I want to know, and we will not rest until we uncover these answers. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you very much.
Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, people. Come on, come on. Welcome to the revolution. People crying out for justice.
Thank you, Senator Lakshmi Dayal. And let us put our hands once more for Senator for that wonderful contribution. You know, I want to say as a councillor, I came into local government in 2016 because as a young person, we want to make a difference. And I must say, under this PNM government, councillors become beggars because things what we are entitled to as councillors, we have to go and beg. We have to go and beg businesses in the region to assist persons. The Sani Grande region is classed as one of the most poorest regions in the country. We have persons who live on less than $50 a day. We have persons, mothers, who have to choose between sending their children to school or putting a meal on the table. Have to choose which one of their child to send to school because they don't have passage to send children to school. We have to stand up as a people, as a country, and say enough is enough. My friends, people are suffering in this country. People are crying for change. And I'm saying, we're seeing this party forming and that party forming. But we are saying tonight the only party to take us into government and the only leader to take us into government is the UNC under the stewardship of Kamala Persad-Bissessar. And we are calling on everyone, let us rally around our political leader and our great party to ensure that we bring some kind of comfort to people in this country. My friend, as a councillor, we have to go and beg Ministry of Works for material to fix roads. And we are not receiving any funding under material and supply in the corporation. And we are saying to the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Local Government, give us funding so we can deliver to the people. Our next speaker is a distinguished national athlete and who has been a fearless advocate for issues relating youths, poverty alleviation, and social equity. He has represented Trinidad and Tobago since the age of 17, served as the captain of the national football team, chosen as the Caribbean MVP several times, and was twice named Player of the Year. Please help me welcome to the podium Senator David Naked.
Revolution is about restoring our democracy, and this revolution is about stopping this creeping dictatorship. This is the people's revolution. Come on, people. Come on, people.
God, the most gracious, the especially merciful. Greetings to all watching here and on the World Wide Web, and special greetings to our political leader, the Honorable Kamala Persad-Bissessar. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a shout out to my constituency of Tinapuna, who's in the house. Let us have the conversation. Our country is in crisis. Economic, social, cultural, sporting. But nothing eats away at the soul of a country, at the essence, spirit of a country, like when the morality of that country is compromised. When the innocence of that country is gone, when it's lost, we feel a sense of despair. And that's what we've seen. We've seen our youth, our boys and girls, who represent our innocence, the better parts of ourselves, our better angels. They are our redemption. They are not only what we call our cliched future, they are indeed the DNA of our nation. Who on earth would seek to gain political capital based on lies at their expense? Keith Rowley today posted on his Facebook page that he indeed had operationalized the Children's Authority in his time. A blatant lie, a lie. You cannot tell when Rowley is breathing or when he's lying. It's the same thing. In 2013, the Honorable Kamara Prasad Bisesa, after 3 years of work from 10 to 13, operationalized the Children's Authority with Senior Counsel Stephanie Daly. That is a fact. Rowley now seeks to attempt to rewrite history and comes out with his typical manner, brash. You will remember that he did so and he spoke about children. And he said, Rowley, you never speak about children in your damn life. Rowley, you never speak about anything other than golf and how much money you could make and how you could buff this one and that one. And 90, exactly, DPL. Somebody 90, somebody this, some hyenas, cockroaches. When did you ever show any regard for the children of this nation? But now you get catch. So I was assured somewhat when I saw the utterances of Verna St. Rose Graves, because I thought I was the only one who noticed that Rowley, after a media briefing, a cabinet briefing, and so came and spoke to the media, ran through a script, monotone, robotic, talking about the Children's Authority. Like he didn't have time. Ran through it, and then spoke ad-lib 1 minute and 35 seconds from his heart. And where he went straight to, what is important to Rowley? Power and money. Went straight into Foster Cummings. And he talked about that the live long day. Lies again, but he wants now to come and tell us that he has regard for the children. Something eaten away at the soul of the nation. But we'll see this. Not only this despicable, reprehensible Rowley, who got a report basically outlining how our young boys and girls were snuffed out, abused, snatched their innocence, snatched brutally from them by pedophiles. Let's call it what it was. Pedophiles belonging to a political class. And apparently it has happened before. I want you all to listen now to the head of a task force, Robert Sabga, speaking about his report back in 1997. Let's listen to them, please. Robert Sabga. What basically he said in his interview with Boxu Potts was that he knew who were the pedophiles that abused people in the house, in those houses, in those Children Authority homes. He knew who they were. He spoke about the DNA of 2 senior PNM members being found in that autopsy report on Akil Chambers being found in the anus of that boy. How graphic, how despicable. He spoke about that. I mean, they could hide in the mountains, they could hide in the valley, but he said that. So what we are looking for from this disclosure by Robert Sabga is not only about what they did. Do we have it up and running? Let's go, please.
Point in time, it was a UNC government. Can you say whether or not any of those persons that were named were part of the UNC government?
I will categorically tell you no. None. You have to remember the UNC had been in office a little over a year. What we ran into was something that was already well established and endemic.
So are you saying that we could assume that they were active members of the PNM government or officials, active members of that party who were part of that title?
I neither confirm nor deny.
You're not going to confirm or deny, okay. And you know the
I
the
neither
title of that
confirm nor
article
deny. They say that time is longer than twine.
Yeah.
Robert?
One of the key individuals has now shuffled off his mortal coil. He's gone. But one of the other key individuals still holds a very high position. The best clue, I can't speak to this. I cannot call names. But if you recall the story of the young boy who was buggered and who was drowned in a pool.
Akil Chambers.
I didn't say anything, it's these two.
No, Akil Chambers.
The autopsy report on that boy went the same way as our report, because the DNA of two of these individuals were found in his body, in his anus at the time. I will say no more.
Yeah. I have to live with that for half a day. Ask our DPL, my voice when I call her, to reveal this to her. We have families of that boy living it for over 20 years. That boy who they abused, raped, buggered, tortured, and then killed in a pool. And this Rowley want to come and talk about anything that happened, that he has regard for children. A Judith Jones report on his desk since December 2021. What has he done? Sat on it. Done nothing. Only want to do what? Monetize it. 126 million to make a task force, to look into a task force report. Under resource the Children's Authority to begin with. Money not allocated properly. Why? Not the proper staff. Children were undernourished, not well clothed, not well housed, obviously not well secured. Two boys, Semi and Daniel Antonio Francois, killed while escaping from an authority. Now we hear in a report with all their full outrage and full grievance. We hear a report from the man, Robert Sabga. And I don't know why he want to name names. I don't know why. What is it in this country when people have knowledge that can name names? He could come out and say, he said somebody died. As I'll repeat, they could hide in the mountains or hide in the valley. We know who you are. We know who you are. And he has knowledge. He said the DNA was found inside that boy's body. And you have the audacity to come now after 25 years and instead of telling a grieving nation, traumatized by what happened in those homes to those boys and girls, and still happening, while we're already looking with Ayanna Webster-Roy, pretending to find solutions, you come in now to tell us about, on your Facebook page, that you operationalize the Children's Authority, lying to the people again. Kamala Prasad Bissassa did that. If you truly cared about children, you would have bought them laptops. If you truly cared about children, you would not have stopped the single mother grants. If you truly cared about children, You would have made sure that you had those early childhood centers up and running. You would not have politicized every damn thing. And you're coming out to talk about you care about children? Well, you care about nothing but yourself. The whole nation knows who you are, Keith Rowley. They know who you are. But race and petty politics eat our food, the black bourgeoisie eat our food people that we have. Instilling the fear of your narrative into the people supported by the mainstream media. So they're only prattling what is your narrative, Keith Rowley. But we can see now, I am saying here today, based on what Robert Sabga said, he said by the time the UNC came in, it was endemic. That pedophilia that we are seeing was endemic. What does that mean? And he called 2 PNM members, one of them currently high-ranking, still is there. So obviously, the PNM have a pedophile ring within those children's homes. That is what it is. Because I know from my investigations, those 2 boys were being pimped out, Simeon Daniel and Antonio Francois. And that's why they were killed. And I said that to Judith Jones and the task force report. Did you all see that in the report? Why not? Why was it politicized? These are the questions you have to ask yourself. Listen, I could come and talk the whole livelong day about food prices high. You don't know food prices high. You don't know that people going with 1 meal a day. You don't know that have people who can't feed their children properly. You all know that. But what it is that takes away and burns your conscience, when you know that your children, the children of this nation, not being taken care of, the children that you paying for with your taxpayers' money, and that clown Claude Rowley could come and say to the people, you know what he said? $80,000 is not much. $80,000 is not much. Actually, look at this liar. Actually, when you're in state care, it'll be more than when you're taking care of your child at home. You come in here to you really, as Cook Megu say, you really taking this nation for fools? You want to tell us that we need $80,000 per child per year to take care of our children? Rowley, you think you're talking to Faris Harari and Randall Mitchell and some intellectually deficient people? And Stuart Young? No. This nation realizes who you are. We have seen you, Keith Rowley. But what do we have to do? I'll tell you what we have to do. It's not us who will say enough is enough in the UNC. We could say that the live down there. It's the communities that are well off in Trinidad and Tobago, but who can empathize with what is going on in the poor communities. They must say enough is enough. And that will happen. It is the communities who, as that Karen Nunes teacher, from those businesses that have supported that cocaine trafficking in Trinidad and Tobago, that have decimated the communities of Mova, Lavantil, Bitam, Cocorite, the zone in Tenapuna, where children can't sleep, when children can't have a proper livelihood. Those communities, they must say enough is enough for they have any effect on this government. We could come here and talk live long day about enough is enough. But they must realize, they must wake up. And that is what our honorable leader, Kamla Prasad Bisasa, stresses. They must wake up. They must tell these people, your time to wake up. We can only do so much. As we say, we could bring it to the table. They have to eat. They have to eat the knowledge that we present to them. How much we going to tell Lavantil and Mova and Bitam? And you know, some people say, boy, Senator, you looking for votes. Some people who are not looking for your vote. Don't vote for me. I want you to wake up. I want you to wake up. Because when you wake up, that is the end of Rowley. That's the end of the PNM. As I said before, brothers and sisters, I know my time might go a little bit, but these things eats away at your conscience. It burns you to the soul to hear that report about that boy Akil Chambers. I know. I saw your faces. That is real. Rory could come with all the distractions he wants. Young and Hines and his whole bunch of incompetent morons. They could come with all the distractions. They cannot deny the fact. They have brought our country to where we are now. They are responsible for spending over $300 billion in their tenure. $300 billion with nothing to show for it. Not one thing. What we have? A demoralized population. What we have? Our children at risk. What we have? Violence in schools. What we have? The highest murder rate in the world. What we have? Food insecurity. What we have? Everything possible that could be less on the economic indices we have under Keith Christopher Rowley. Petrol chain sold. Oil and gas decimated. So what can I tell you? All we can say is that we have to recognize what our honorable political leader has done. She has changed the face of the party. She's not interested in Kamala Mania. She's interested in the people's revolution. And that is what we must bring to the table. So when we go forward, from now on, people, we go forward with one hand. We know who Rowley is. We know who he is. He has shown us time and time again. He can't help himself. Nothing he can bring as a leader to the table. And we know that. We know that. And everybody, even his sycophantic followers, they know that. So what do we have to do? We have to hit the ground. We have to work hard. We have to tell the people, wake them up. All the communities. Not only, we're not interested in only our what we call our spaces and our safe spaces. Everybody in Trinidad and Tobago. Because we truly are the only national party of Trinidad and Tobago. So I say to all our people, and I say to my people in Tinapuna, as I say to all of you brothers and sisters, love in the house, all the time.
Woman Attorney General, first woman to chair the Commonwealth of 54 nations, first woman opposition leader. Welcome KPB Plus, solid everywhere.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, and our viewing audience. What a great evening of politics. I want to thank you, our great Chinese Rasta, Ayman. Thank you to our PRO, Dr. Kirk Mehu, to our esteemed counsel, Senator Jayanti Lakshmi Dayal, and the very, very, very esteemed Senator David Nakid. They have stood like a rock in this evening's event. Thank you so much. So, ladies and gentlemen, to conclude this evening's proceedings, as you are aware, today in the lower house, the Minister of Finance presented his statement on the mid-year review of the economy. Our most honorable senior counsel led our UNC MPs into battle, and her response to the Minister of Finance was a masterclass in economics, in finance, in management, in vision and politics, where she again reminded the Honourable Minister of Finance that he could have said what he wanted. A mother is still thinking, just as our councillor said. She's still making that decision. Should I send my child to school or should I put food on the table? Those questions were not answered. And our warrior, Kamla Prasad Bisesa, brought it to his attention. Ladies and gentlemen of our viewing audience, I present to you the brilliant and riveting presentation of our most honorable Kamla Prasad Bisesa this afternoon in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago. The response. Thank you so much. Have a good evening.
Committee of the House of Representatives for the second session, 2021-2022, 12th Parliament, on the consideration of proposals for the supplementation of appropriation for the fiscal year 2022. Member for Superior. Member for Superior, before you start, you have a maximum of 66 minutes.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. As I join this debate on a motion where the government is seeking to ask Parliament to approve a further over $3 billion for expenditures for the rest of the 5 months of this fiscal year. So in addition to the 52 plus billion that was already appropriated in the budget in October for fiscal 2022, this is an additional $3 billion. And my question is this: what have you done with all that money? What have you done with all these billions of dollars? What do you have to show for expenditures of these massive amounts of money? And you know, Madam, as I listened to the Honourable Minister of Finance, you know you hit rock bottom when the only accomplishment this government could tell us about is that they didn't borrow for the first 5 months of this fiscal year. Big accomplishment, shouting and boasting and celebrating that you were able not to borrow for 5 months. That is your boast, that is your commitment, that is your accomplishment. And that has nothing to do with leadership and performance by that government. All the things the minister is boasting and crowing about, nothing to do with proper management and leadership, because he told us himself, it's from the energy prices.
The members who are congregating to the back, please either carry a conversation outside or come to your seats. Proceed, Member for Superior.
Thank you, Madam. And so nothing to do with performance and management and so on has to do with the higher energy prices. And now the question is this: after the war in Ukraine, after these prices go back to normal, what will you do? What will you do? Because you have shown no projects, no policy, no strategy, no programs, anything to grow the economy. What you're boasting about high energy prices and what the war in Ukraine has done. And therefore, what does it mean? When that is over, what will you then do? Will you go back to raiding the HSF? Will you go back to borrowing because you have no new projects, no revenue streams, no investments? 7 years. And all your game changers, game over. None of them ever materialize. So when the minister speaks, it's very difficult for us to believe what he tells us. I'm not saying he's dishonest, but I think he's just over-exuberant and very optimistic. Very optimistic, and seeks to infuse that into the national population. But I am not convinced. And for the majority of this time the minister took, not even the minister sounded as though he believed what he was saying. Very low tone, very low-keyed, except when he hit the spots of high energy prices and so on. But before I continue, Madam, I just want to say something about what transpired with respect to the speaking time. Here I have in my hand, and listen, you talk for 6 or 7 minutes, I could do that and more. So don't think you blindsided me. Don't think you blindsided us by telling us that we would only have 45 minutes and then come today and say unlimited time. So I'm not afraid. I can talk you any day, anytime, any place, anywhere. Anywhere. And so I have here in my hand a print of a WhatsApp message sent by the Honorable Chief Whip, MP David Lee, to the Honorable Leader of Government Business. And he says, hi, this is at 7:27 p.m. on Friday. Monday's debate. What would be the speaking time? The Honorable Leader of Government Business responded, and I quote from the WhatsApp message, the usual 45 minutes for the mover and responder, and 30 minutes for every other speaker, 30 minutes to close. That is at 7:30. So the message went from Chief Whip Lee at 7:27. Response came back at 7:30, and the Chief Whip says, noted. Now, this is a very important point, because when you look at the motion that was moved today to vary the speaking time, when the Honorable Leader of Government Business attempted to tell this House that, look, we've gone back to regular time, and therefore that's why it was determined that this will happen, as the motion was moved for change in speaking time. That only the speaking time be as follows with respect to Parliament, appropriation, supplementary appropriation, financial year 2022 bill, only the speaking time be as follows, only for that. So this is not going back to regular time, not going back to regular time. The motion was clear, it was only that the speaking time be as follows, finance unlimited. So you attempted in a way to blindside us by giving the wrong information. And therefore you misled this House and misled us. And that when you say you want people to hear and you want to talk as long as you want to talk and unlimited, there's a total bias of what takes place in this House, and I do not cast that onto the Speaker. The government runs or attempts to run this Parliament as if it were Balliget House, but this is not Balliget House. And you know, I am seeing something here. And I can see even in that standing finance committee, we were here for almost 10 hours on Friday, doing the people's business in that SFC on Friday. And you saw a pattern of behavior that was most appalling. And today, when I listen to Prime Minister's question time and the responses, then I can see where they got their behavior on Friday from, is follow the leader, follow the leader, follow the leader. So when we came on Friday, as we are entitled to do, to ask questions, what is that, the purpose of that committee, to ask the questions for the people on behalf of the people. What did we get? We got evasions, distortions, in some cases outright hostility with respect to answering questions, evading the questions, shouting about people. And I saw it again today, as I said. So follow your leader, follow your leader, follow your leader. And refuse to deal with the people's business. I listened with astonishment, both on Friday in the SFC and again today to the Honourable Minister of Finance, seeking to find what is the rationale for asking the Parliament to give you $3-point-something billion more to spend. And then I read the 251 pages of the SFC report, which we received yesterday morning, and then some responses today, this morning, for a debate that we have to do this afternoon. And all the queries and questions, there were over 57 areas of where additional information was sought by members on this side. Not for us, but on behalf of the taxpayers and the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And again, as I said, people want to know. In local parlance, we say, where the money gone? Where the $52 billion you were given in October last year, where that gone? And where is this 3-point-something billion? Where are you going to spend it? So we have to ask. So you come and you tell us we have to pay contractors. The minister talked about it. Bills, they have bills to pay, bills to pay, bills to pay. We're going to pay VAT and give VAT refunds. And the VAT refunds, madam, from what I understood, at one point he says 1.6 billion. At another point he said it's extra billions more. I heard two numbers and I checked the Hansard. Initially he talked about 1.6 billion to pay out, and then he came to more billions. But the IMF told us, madam, that is but a drop in the bucket. The IMF report told us it is over $7 billion owing to businesses in this country. Over 7 billion. And that VAT payment goes backwards. It's not like it accrued in this year. It's for over a period of time that you have these businesses taking their money up front, paying it in VAT to the government, waiting according to law for the refunds to the VAT. And years later, you're still waiting. Your business gone bust by this time because of your upfront payment. Government is taking the money of the VAT taxpayers like a loan. But they don't give back interest on it when they pay it. So, I want to suggest, and when we form the government, we will amend that VAT Act. So you'll have a net-off effect. You will have a net-off effect against your taxes. You cannot keep doing this. And this government has been the worst in using the money from the VAT people. And these are small businesses, some big, some larger, whatever. It is a dangerous pattern of behavior in holding on to the VAT. So don't come to votes. You're going to, recover the economy and boost the economy. You're going to pay all these VAT refunds. And then who are you paying it to? Whom? Right here in that SFC, we saw it with respect to a company. I think it was Beijing Construction, if I'm not mistaken. So if I may just find that the numbers there. Beijing Construction for the industrial estate to pay millions in VAT refunds. And when asked here, well, we'll find out what happened. Millions of dollars in VAT. Phoenix Park E-Tech VAT payment. Phoenix Park VAT, E-Tech VAT payment. The evidence is clear based on the responses in the SFC that the commitment to pay outstanding VAT for an industrial estate as opposed to spending that money to develop industrial capacity. The only money from the VAT payment being retained by Beijing will be the VAT they paid for the raw materials and in performance of their contract to their service providers. We understand that the government may be using this approach to ensure they have liquidity through this VAT component in the project. The question is why government cannot remit the net VAT returns to E-Tech and let E-Tech expand its industrial activity and capacity. The government is merely taking this net VAT component from one spreadsheet in the Ministry of Finance and doing what? Put it into another part of the same Ministry of Finance spreadsheet. One spreadsheet to another in the Ministry of Finance. And let's see what happens when the government gets their net VAT payment back from Beijing on the Phoenix Park project. Instead of letting it sit in the consolidated fund to cover renters and fees for lawyers and so on, they should do this as a net VAT is paid. The VAT component on this project should be cycled back to E-Tech as a supplementary appropriation. And so they could do business incubators for growing SMEs to boost export capacity, business upscaling projects for export, ready products, Scorpion pepper, Trinitario chocolate, that we can have these business startups. Government could have established a more robust presence in destination markets to grow our own economy. So instead of under head 18 Ministry of Finance, they choose to engage in spreadsheet economics, as I said before, moving cash from one line item in the ministry to another. In the end, no material benefit to the industry players. So I'm saying, why don't you resource, finance, E-Tech? What is also of concern was a confession by the Minister of Trade. A stranger to this house came from the other place, Minister of Trade, that some $25.9 million will be used to pay the same foreign company. And I quote here from her words, "It is associated with the extension of time request." Listen carefully, you know what this is for. It is associated with the extension of time requests by the contractor to E-Tech And these sort of claims are associated with inclement weather. We're talking about $25.9 million, inclement weather, with shutdowns during COVID, with increased shipping rates, squatter issues, etc. What squatter issues is 25 point something million? What squatter issues? I wonder what squatter issues we are repaying for this 25 something million. I wonder what kind of inclement weather we are paying 25 point whatever million dollars, man. And then you want to come here and boast you're paying VAT refunds and doing all these things when you have people in this country cannot put a plate of food on their table. Where there's real suffering in Trinidad and Tobago. So I ask you again, where all the money gone? We want to know where the money gone. Tell us the accomplishment apart from telling us that you didn't have to borrow. You didn't have to borrow. So I said I listened in astonishment. And not just ordinary astonishment. I listened in abject astonishment, meaning my heart was so depressed, my soul, my spirit, when I see that in this entire $3 billion more you want to spend nothing for people, nothing to help the ordinary people of our land, nothing. Nothing to create jobs, there's joblessness out there. Nothing to really help crime. I think MP Saddam, under national security, the increase for the SSA, and the minister couldn't tell us if one CCTV camera had been repaired. Not one, he couldn't tell us that. And then said he chose to answer that question in what? In silence. Minister, you should just go home in silence. Just go. Crime is such an all-time high. Cannot tell us. When we came to the parliament, and this is not to use the death of one of our daughters of our soil, with the Andrea Barrett matter, when it came about the CCTV cameras, you know, not one camera going up there yet. And another body was found. Another body was found. I saw someone telling me the Prime Minister went up to a repo is a place, to see a cow or some animals on a farm. He never went up a repo when all these daughters of our land, their bodies were found. Never find time to pass. But you're going up to see somebody, cow I think it was. I saw a picture. Maybe mistaken. What is your care for the children of this land? You drill up and dig up and put out yesterday a 25-year-old report. And then you're going back 25 years to look for Pandy, that he was in government. Out of those years, how many were you in government? What did you do with that report? What did you do? The famous Sabah, infamous Sabga report, what did you do? Coming down now, 25 years, witch hunting, when you, out of those the majority of years, you were in office. So look, no crocodile tears from that minister about his children's homes, you know. No going back 25 years. You are in charge now. Do something. Do something. Our children need to be safe. They need to be secure. We need justice for these children. So you come here for more money in the supplementary appropriation and so on. Up and I'm not sure if any of those recommendations in that report have been taken to heart. Take another 5 weeks. Take another 6 months. Task force again to do something else. And children are in dangerous positions there. And you come for these monies. The monies, each of the homes, you're giving money to them. Hey, everything is not about money, you know. It is about getting these children into safe places now, not leaving them there until you can deal with whatever issues that your task force will come up with. And therefore, it is not for me to tell you what to do, but I can tell you what we will do when we form the government. I can tell you that. I can tell you we have a track record of what we did when we were in office. There is a track record, and no amount of silly noises is going to help you escape. In every sector, we were able to bring a better quality of life, a better quality. My colleagues will share some of that, and why I'm raising this, madam, is because of the expenditure. You have spent X and Y amount of dollars, and still the children don't have their laptops. You have a prime minister boasting he get 32 or 42 or even 100 laptop. I would say, some people would say, not me. That's like a hypocrite, you know. It's like you're just showing off that you're giving all these few laptops. What about all the other children, man? What about them? So you come here on the education for more money, not wanting about a laptop. Nothing in it. Anita is a MP. Nothing in education. Have you even built a school with all this money and you're coming for more? Have you even built a police station? You know, we built about 8 or 9 police stations. We built over 106 schools. We could show where the money was. You can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it. In economy, under the economy, we got $48 billion in FDI. What have you got? Under this government, we had minus FDI, over $10 billion, zoops, pick up and fly away, and went away. FDI outflows negative. And you come to boast that you can see clearly. You told us that years ago, you didn't say it today. But you say some people only see in doom and gloom even when the sun is shining. But Minister, the sun is not shining on our economy. All the vital signs of the economy are in trouble, every single one. No matter how you try to polish it up and put it out, every single one in the economy. And I know we are doing with the supplementary appropriation, Madam Speaker, but the minister went at large. The minister went at large. He spent the time reading out the certain heads and the amounts and then went to talk about public debt, to talk about GDP. So many other things the minister inserted in this, and he was not found irrelevant. He was not found to be out of the, on the track with the matters being debated. No. He was allowed to do all of that, and therefore I'll respond to some of that.
Member?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sure you don't mean it, but there's an imputation in those statements. All right? So please watch it.
Sure. The only imputation, madam, is not to the chair. It is to the Minister of Finance. That is it. Nothing to the chair of this honorable House or to the honorable Speaker of the House. And so we went into this, and again, the maths not maths, and I said that last budget time. Once again, MP Anita had given me those words, maths not maths, and she says the young people say. So when we look at the supplementary appropriation and so on, and in the Standing Finance Committee, we are not seeing the mathsing, adding up. It's just not adding up. The majority of the additional allocation, Minister told us goods and service. But you know, one of the major planks in the supplementary allocation, out of that $3 billion, 1.7 billion, that's the largest chunk of the money, is going towards current transfers and subsidies. Now, we saw Minister saying he's going to be paying, a lot of this is to pay bills, paying Tech bills, TT bills, WhatsApp bills, rentals, and so on. But listen, all those things is from one arm of the state to the next arm of the state. That's not going to be helping people out there. And some of those things date back to 2018. Some of those bills they have been owing since 2018. And then you want to know WhatsApp running bankrupt. You want to know why TSTT is going bankrupt. These public utilities that you have not been paying your monies. And I never heard something so ludicrous. When asked about these bills, the response from the government was that, hello, the company, TSTT and WASA, they said, listen, we didn't get the invoices. We did not get the invoices. From 2018, you're owing these bills, and you didn't get invoices. I refuse to believe that. And I'm going to file a Freedom of Information application to find out exactly what went on. Why is this money so far in arrears? So sort of deliberate underestimating in the last budget, and we see there, therefore the numbers not going. Further, when we were looking at the numbers in that supplementary appropriation schedule and so on, we noticed there was an attempt not to include a variation of appropriation note. Now, normally we come for supplementary and a variation. It is true that the Parliament doesn't have to approve it, but the Parliament has sight of the variations within a head. That never came, but yet the minister was moving and is moving money that was approved for something else on a different line item from the last budget, and we don't know what those were unless when we looked at the number. But wait, that's not the number in the yellow book, in the estimates from last year. So this is like a slide, well, one cast imputation like that, but something is not right there, that you do not bring the variations. You get up and tell me, Member Mr. Barra, you know, you don't have to approve it, but the Parliament has to see it. When you move something from national security that was for CCTV cameras, for example, and you're putting it to paying rent for somebody building, but we need to know that. We need to see what your priorities are. We saw also the avoidance of answering questions. Avoidance of answering questions. Now, if this was their own money, they're entitled not to answer. That's their own money, but this money here, their jobs here in a Standing Finance Committee is to provide the answers of what you're doing with the money. You don't have to come and throw a tantrum. Every time somebody asks you a question here, it's a tantrum, like little children, kicks in Parliament. I saw the Minister for Energy when being asked questions, which of course was under the office of the Prime Minister because he's a minister in the office of the Prime Minister. Tantrum, going into the review mirror, going back to 2010. You want to govern looking backwards in the review mirror? Is that how you want to run this country? Throwing the tantrum, buffing the people asking the questions. And again, why didn't the Prime Minister himself come to answer his questions under the office of the Prime Minister? The office of the Prime Minister, they're seeking an appropriation of several million dollars. Why didn't the Prime Minister come? And if he were here, he could have answered another question. The honourable member could have answered the question. When asked about this national secondary road, $100 million, we checked with the company's registry. First of all, there is no such entity registered in the company's registry. It does not exist. Here we are, however, being asked to approve $100 million for this non-existent entity. When asked in this Parliament, so under which ministry would it fall? Well, that was trouble. Minister said, I don't know. That's the job of the Prime Minister. So why wasn't the Prime Minister here to answer those questions? Why? You want the opposition and you want the Parliament to approve money for you all to spend, and we don't know who is going to, where it's going, when, how, what, where. None of that. The government is not forthcoming on answering the questions and keep avoiding those questions. Then we came to the new Attorney General. Not the former Attorney General. The new, green Attorney General. New. And it was green in the sense of being new. It was clear that he really needs to get some help from his colleagues. Because when we asked him about fees, legal fees, now that is an issue, madam. In the SFC, we asked about legal fees on various heads that you were seeking money to pay these legal fees and so on. The AG quoted something or said something, I don't know where he got it from. The end result of what he said was, no, I'm not giving that to you now. I'm not going to answer those questions. Now, even the former AG came to this Parliament and laid all these legal fees that had been paid out of that office, and this is what the new AG said. I quote, this is from the SFC report, page 31. Has been the practice, member, of the Office of Attorney General and Legal Affairs to pay respect to the concept of fairness, and if an attorney wishes to have his name disclosed, he would first be asked. Really? That's the practice? You have to ask the lawyer first? Well, AG, you are one of the lawyers who receive fees. Why didn't you give consent for your fees to be disclosed? You could give permission to yourself, of course. You didn't have to wait for anybody to give you permission. He continues, the Honourable Attorney General, I was not aware that I was going to be asked to disclose the name. I certainly will ask of that attorney whether he consents, and that information in the normal course will be laid in Parliament according to the custom. I have some questions for you, Honourable AG. How long has this practice been in effect? How long? I've been in this Parliament longer than you. And I have seen time and time and time again that the practice is to answer the question. Who authorized this practice that you speak of? Certainly not your predecessor. As I said, that predecessor laid these things in Parliament. What is the precedent for this practice? Even the boards of private companies must account to their shareholders. And so with respect to the state, the government is the board, and the stakeholders are the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. Can any state contractor, be it an individual or company, reasonably expect their identity to remain secret from the public? Why you don't want the public to know? Is there something to hide? So you have to ask the lawyer, hello, can I tell them I paid you X dollars for Y amount of work? And the lawyer says no. Where did that money come from? From the treasury of Trinidad and Tobago, which belongs to the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And then the Honorable AG talks about the concept of fairness. In this explanation, he talks about the concept of fairness to the attorneys. Fairness to whom? To your lawyer friends or to the taxpayers? Where's the fairness to the taxpayers? So you hide behind fairness, saying you have to go and ask the lawyer, and only if he agrees, then you can bring it to the parliament. But where's the fairness to the taxpayers? Where did you get that money to pay? Where does the government get that money to pay anybody? Anything. It's from the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. So where is the fairness? And I already asked, AG, you could give consent to yourself, himself to himself, and tell us what were your fees. So I talked about the secondary road rehab improvement company. $100 million we are being asked to approve, and I already told you, we don't know what this is, who it is, and where it's going to fall. But we do know one thing, because there was a massive amount of money being asked for the EBC. I think it was 100 million more to be. I'm sorry. The EBC is being asked, has asked, and we did it in SFC, being asked for monies for this fiscal. We had already allocated some money to the EBC in the original budget. So the total, and I can check it, but the total, if my memory serves me right, is about 100 million. Wonder if you can just check it for me. Huh? $23 million, I'm being told. $23 million. So we know monies are going to the EBC. Just take the total and tell me for EBC. Yeah, so money going to EBC, and now we have 100 million going to a company that is not established. And for what? Secondary roads. Now, isn't it that the, what you call them, the regional corporations, they handle secondary roads? Is it then that you're going to take this away from the regional corporations as we run up to the local government elections, and therefore do it through a private company, well, a state company, instead of through the regional corporations? And then you can handpick where you want to go, rather than giving equal funding to the various regional corporations. So I hope the new Minister of Local Government, if those roads now fall under you, under the Honourable Member in local government, that he will remember the principles of fairness and equity for the corporations and not use the company to do what you want. So, Mr. Hussain, MP, asks the Minister of National Security under the SSA. This was it. SSA wants $66 million more. They're seeking this for the under National Security SSA. And the minister responded most abrasively, I would say, outright refused to answer questions. MP Hussain says, and you're telling this parliament that no CCTV, not one single CCTV camera was repaired, not a single camera, and now you're coming to ask for $66 million additional. Honourable Minister Hines, Madam Chair, I could not tell you where the member for Baratara Sanwan got that. MP Hussain, sure. What I also want to ask the Minister, Madam Chair, is whether or not any of the 66 million will go towards the purchase, acquisition, management of spyware services in Trinidad and Tobago. What was the response? No response. Minister Hines, I will treat that foolish, idiotic question with silence. I will treat that foolish, idiotic question with silence. There we got it. Madam Chair, so you will treat that question with silence. Honour Hines, yes, I will treat it with silence. Refusal to answer. Refusal to answer. So you want us to deal with appropriations, to give you more money, but you will not say yes or no to simple questions that were put to you. And then we go on to these bills. The minister says he has to pay a lot of bills. Minister of Finance, bills. Says that he wants to pay bills. We have 1.79 billion in transfers and subsidies. That represents 58% of the total supplementation. And when we look at those expenses, they do not paint a picture of an economic response to kickstart the economy. When we dive into the details, we note payments for attorneys and rentals. Thank you.
Member.
I'm sorry.
Minister of Finance and Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
I was correct.
Please, the crosstalk and the talk between yourselves and your volumes will be on what is tolerable.
Thank you, Madam. I said I would get the estimates for you for the EBC, and I was correct. The original estimate was for 76 million. And now the supplemental estimate, 23 million, which adds up to just under 100 million, $99 million. The original estimate, 76 million, supplemental, 23 million, making a grand total of 99 million for fiscal 2022 for the EBC. So I was on Minister telling us we are going to be paying bills, the backlog of telephone, tea and tech, promotions and publicity and so on. But the minister in a sense seems to be contradicting himself. He said payments of arrears to public utilities, rent, lease, etc. will regenerate ourselves and inject growth in them. Regenerate, inject growth. However, on the parliamentary record, the minister had said an emphatic no to these arrears, putting companies into red and into bankruptcy. He said no. I think MP Barry Padarat may have raised those questions. So if we are paying all these bills, as I said, from one side of the book to the next side of the book, between the same government, state departments, and there is nothing in this 3.8 billion to help reposition the economy. In other words, no contribution to address the foreign exchange crisis. Nothing about rationalizing the cost of custom duties by applying sensitive rates given the effect of the higher shipping costs and so on. From this 3 billion, government could have focused on contributing to retooling the education sector, which so vitally needs it. We are already losing tech entrepreneurs to Caribbean counterparts. YPay, or WePay, a leading regional fintech, relocated last August to Jamaica. That should have been a sign that our government's policies are not good for entrepreneurs. The government did not decide to recant from their poor decision of denying the laptops. And so there is no support for major economic sector to stem the loss of jobs, the tide of the loss of jobs. They have abandoned, as I said, the concepts of game changers. And when we look 15 to 20, we have been hemorrhaging with the FDI instead of gaining any FDI. So these arrears date back, those utilities and so on, as I told you, since 2018. So I don't see where you're going to get anything to inject in the businesses and cause growth for those businesses. That's not going to happen, Minister. That is a pipe dream, in my respectful view. So we move along now to some other areas. Public debt. The Minister spent a lot of time on public debt. And I'm sorry, Madam, are you trying to get my attention? Thank you. Public debt. Well, the Minister gave some numbers. Again, I don't trust those numbers because we've seen where they've not been correct in the past. As at September 30th, 2021, the Auditor General, I'll put my faith in the Auditor General, places gross public sector debt at $141.8 billion. $141.8 billion as of September 30, 2021. Well, that's just a few months ago. That's like 5 to 6 months ago. And when we look at the central government public debt, we see fiscal ended 30th September 21, 96.7 billion. 96.7 billion. so that the government, up to where we have those numbers from the Auditor General, increased public debt by $46 billion. $46 billion. So you really have a right to probably go out and boast we didn't borrow anything for this 5 months. But we still have some more months to go in the fiscal year, so we'll await that grand total at the end of it. The debt burden on the economy is very high, and there's no cogent plan, it appears, is forthcoming to remedy that debt situation. The further allocation of $3 billion of spending will bring the question about the state of our debt burden. We came out of the pandemic with an economic transformation plan. I wonder what happened to that, the roadmap to recovery something. What has become of that great plan? What has happened to it? No plan. Apart from this debt burden, government has a high debt service obligation. And let me tell you, Madam Speaker, on this supplementary appropriation, Minister spoke about public debt and boasting about it. Right here in this SFC, we saw they wanted money to pay to service loans. How much? Out of that money being supplemented, $291 million is to service debt, meaning to service things, the monies they had borrowed. And so we saw under head 13, the Office of the Prime Minister, interest payment on a TT 500 million loan, UDCOT. There's just the interest now, you know. In some of these instances, the money that you're now asking for, they are going to pay just interest, so the debt remains there. So we're borrowing money to pay interest, to borrow more money, to settle debt. Head 13, I said, UDCOT, interest payment on TT $500 million, you have to pay, if a loan payment, $5.271 million. On the health, head 28 in the supplementary, NIPDEC, RBC bank principal payment of $17.7 million and interest of $4.9 million loan for procurement, storage, and distribution of pharmaceuticals. So a total of $22.673 million to do what? To pay loan. Head 77, EMBD, principal on $90 million loan. You're asking for $56.2 million. What? To pay principal of a loan that was taken. Under head 80, tourism and culture, NCC, principal payment on TT 100 million, 2-year loan. You're asking for $20 million to pay money on this NCC loan. So under tourism, you have it under head tourism and culture, but it's really something that NCC did. 2-year loan. Head 39, Ministry of Public Utilities, principal and interest on a US $60 million loan to meet payments. Amount being asked for in total, $161.3 million. All of these monies going towards paying principal and or interest on loans taken by governments. So therefore, that's not going to bring any growth. That's not going to inject whatever the minister said. This $291 million to pay loans is not going to inject anything. Because you're paying interest here, and then you come again and you refinance some of these loans. That's what has been happening. Refinance, and the interest keeps going up. Here's another one. Head 39, Ministry of Public Utilities, US $25 million loan facilities to settle an outstanding balance of an existing revolving credit facility. How much are you asking for here? $16.4 million. On the head 61, housing, UDCOT principal payment on TT 51.1 million loan, a 1.5% 3-year fixed rate term. You're asking here for $8.9 million to pay this. Head 61, housing, UDCOT interest payment on a loan, you're asking for $303,663. Grand total money that you're just putting on paper is $291.2 million. So out of this big $3 billion, That is sunk. That money is lost money, sunk money, spent already, that you're now paying for loans over periods of time. So government paid last year, madam, last fiscal, they paid $10.75 billion, not million, $10.75 billion in charges on account of the public debt. Understand this, Understand this, $10.5 billion in charges on account of public debt in the last fiscal year. Clearly, some type of restructuring of the public debt needs to take place so that we can reduce this annual payment on account of the public debt. This would help government to spend needed billions annually in projects that would help attract foreign direct investment, create the economic turnaround that we all really want and want to see happen. What we observe by the supplementary appropriation is more of the same, again seeking to pay these bills. Now the government may well advance that in addition to the $3 billion is being paid for from increased revenue, it does not erase the already anticipated deficit of over $9 billion for the current fiscal period. The minister attempted to explain this deficit, the fiscal balance. This means that the financing of the rest of the budget will still involve borrowings. So there will come a time when the government must turn the corner on borrowing. Borrowing should be done in a very judicious manner. You can see the high numbers that we have. But by their results, it is clear the government has no clue on how to grow the economy. Therefore, they engage in borrowing to pay debts, taking loan to pay loans. Government from day one has sought to tax, borrow, and spend. As I said before, no plan, no strategy, no policies to grow the economy and to create jobs. So public debt is still exceedingly high, and a lot of the money from the supplementation, $291 million, is going to pay debt. It's not going to create a new job. It's not going to create any new hospital beds. It's not going to build a police station. It's not going to bring down the cost of living. All of that is sunk money. One may even call it dead money. It's money already spent from way back when that you're now seeking to pay. So that's not going to regenerate businesses. That's not going to inject any growth. It will be a further drag on the taxpayers of Trinidad and Tobago. When we look at the, Minister talked about statistics and how this so great statistics. What happened to that National Statistical Institute bill that you brought in 2018, which was to help deal with getting reliable and credible statistics? I understand it went to JSC and lapsed since 2020, it never been brought back, but we need it because we don't trust the numbers thrown out by the government. We don't trust them. So, several other areas that we can deal with today. Fiscal balance. The total deficit, 2016 to 2022, $63.97 billion. And we could look at the stats over the years. Budgeted 21-22, 9 billion, just over 9 billion, the minister told us. Today, song and dance, it's not 9, it's less by this and less by that amount. At the end of the day, at the end of the fiscal year, it's only then that we will see. National security, an additional 206 million being asked for national security. Now, I want to ask, what is this almost $207 million going to do to address the out of control crime rate? How will it do it? You've already spent so much money. There are over 200 murders for the year already. And this 207 million plus the additional money from the last 2022 budget will give us a very large sum going into national security. What is the purpose of all these billions when people cannot feel safe in their homes? You know, I heard a reporter from Central, a former reporter, dragged out of her home, beaten on her head. I mean, in her home, in the night, sleeping in your bed, dragged out. She's not the only one. Many home invasions, murders, abuse of children. So how is this going to help? And I hope the Minister of National Security will not choose to answer these questions in silence. and that he will tell this Parliament how he intends to use the additional $206 million. So you have serious questions to answer. Out of the money, 66 million was going for SSA, and I asked things about that already. So what is going to happen now with the rest of the several millions that the minister is asking for national security? And I want to ask again the question my honourable colleague MP Saddam Hussein asked you. Is any of this any of these millions going to be used to buy spyware and malware? If not, how much was already spent from your fiscal 2022 budget? The country deserves answers as to what you are doing with their money. And when we come to the office of the Prime Minister, well, look at what happened here. The office of the Prime Minister is requesting almost $60 million additional dollars in this supplementary. $60 million of public money, in addition to a $559 million that was already allocated from the budget last year. What is this for? They're asking for $2 million to do what? To spend on something called promotions, publicity, and printing. $2 million. This is on top of the already $4.5 million allocated in the last budget, so $406 million on promotions and publicity. And there was a strange line item in the estimates for the supplementary about to what? To promote the government's vision, to pay for publicity and printing to promote the government's vision. But you have none. So I don't see what you're going to promote, what you will try to promote. And promotions, publicity, and printing, $2 million, in addition, as I told you. And then this is at a time when every single parent in this country is struggling to pay for textbooks and school uniforms to send their children to school. You have spending $6 million to print and publish what? Your vision of a visionless government. That's what it is. Another item, I was flabbergasted by this one. The Point 14 Highway Commission of Inquiry legal fees. Has that even started? We've been hearing about it 2 years, I think now. Has that even started? And in the estimates 2022, $1,600,000 was allocated, and now you're asking for $5.8 million, an increase of $4.2 million for this commission inquiry. Now this is really bizarre. It is beyond bizarre. As far as I'm aware, this commission has yet to do any work. So if you got 1.6 million from since last year, October, you spent all that already and you're coming forward an additional $4.2 million. For what? We are told that there are $9 million for legal fees. Again, to whom, for what, why, when, where? Can't get those answers. What is that $9 million to pay which lawyers? Will they consent? You had to go and do fairness and ask, hey, my friend. Yeah, that's how we say it, my learned friend. That's how the lawyers speak to each other. My learned friend, will you please consent and tell us how much money you got for that work that you did for the EMBDC? Was it 65 million? 61 million? The legal work being done by WPC, what is her name? Kate or somebody. How many millions they're being paid? They have to consent before you could answer that question in this parliament. Taxpayers' money. I was very disappointed again when MP Saddam raised the question. I've shared with you what the response was. And the procedure adopted by this government is not consistent with transparency, accountability, and good governance. Not consistent. A dodgy procedure will enable people to enter into secret deals at the expense of the public purse, the taxpayers' purse. Without these checks and balances, we're in for a very sorry time, Madam Speaker. Now, there were several items under local government. My colleagues will deal with that. In the few minutes I have left, I just want to thank you for the time, and I want to say this mid-year review is another underhanded attempt by government to squeeze taxpayers to reward themselves. I saw there was a particular minister of this government, I think he's an MP, a particular MP who is under a special branch report. I'm not going into that report, madam. But when in Standing Finance Committee, when we asked, we were given a list by the Honourable Minister of the now Minister of Housing, who is also leader of government business, in answer to questions about who are the contractors that were being paid by Housing and HEC. And I saw two names jump out. Pical. I saw a second name that is in the public domain, Clydon. But we don't know how much. We don't know how much was actually, because they didn't give the amounts for the contractors. There are many other contractors listed, and Minister told us they want to pay contractors. So these are some of the contractors. It will be interesting to see the amounts that are to be paid. So, as I say, this government, clueless, visionless, is taking us over the precipice, over the edge. Our economy is not being transformed. It is being pillaged in some ways to benefit a few. The $3 billion additional spending will not help create jobs or be used to invest. The minister says mainly to pay bills. But you know, governing and managing an economy is not just about paying bills. It's about having plans and policies and projects to grow the economy, to create jobs. You have not shared any single thing. So we'll be back to square one when those energy prices drop. And a minister of our government here, well, that government, goes on CNN. I mean, the untruths, I think MP Lee will deal with those. Really? Really, Minister of Energy? You have gas to supply Europe because of the Ukraine war and the Russian war. I mean, really? Your production has fallen to the lowest in decades. Why would you go and mislead the international community, and they will find you out, you know? They will know it's not true. MP Lee will deal further with that. So, thanks to the complete mismanagement and corruption by this government, our nation, how come? Okay, thank you. Our nation is poorer
48.6
than ever and also more violent than ever.
I respectfully rise on 48.6.
Okay, so, Member for Superior?
Yes, ma'am.
There's a particular word that you used along with mismanagement. I'll ask you to withdraw that word.
Can you please remind me, ma'am? I was in full steam.
You said thanks to the government, something with mismanagement and a number of words. I think you may have it written there in the script.
I think I said corruption.
Yes, so I'll ask you to withdraw that word. You can use mismanagement. Okay, as you well know, if you could withdraw that word and please continue.
I am guided, madam. I withdraw the word corruption and I will move on. So mismanagement, incompetence by this government, our nation is poorer than ever before. Our country is also more violent than ever before. And you know, it seems to me that the government is operating on a parallel reality. And that parallel reality has to do with providing some numbers but not others. Minister talked about increased revenue. I do not recall, correct me if I'm wrong, he told us how much the increased revenue was, the quantum of the increased revenue. He told us the prices have increased and so on. I'll be happy if he did say it, if he can repeat it in his closing of the debate. And it's a kind of false reality, in my respectful view. The people of our country demand and deserve more. They deserve the truth. They deserve an economy which works for them and not against them. They deserve to be able to live lives free from fear and violence. They deserve a country where our vulnerable children are not left to be abused and neglected because of political expediency. And so, madam, as I close, we in the UNC believe in our nation. We know we are in difficult times, but there is always hope. We believe that because we believe in the people and the resilience of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to warn this government, the truth will always prevail. What you seek to hide in the darkness will come to light, and you will not escape. The people of TNT are saying enough is enough. Enough is enough, Madam Speaker. Enough is enough from this incompetent government. I thank you very much.